Under the glaring lights of Schiphol Airport, where the cold air of Amsterdam's early morning could not extinguish the heat of human emotion, a scene unfolded that no passing traveler could ignore. A sea of purple banners, trembling hands clutching letters, and thousands of voices that merged into one final farewell. Why would fans endure hours, even days, in discomfort, withstanding weather, fatigue, and the disorienting chaos of an international terminal, just to witness a few fleeting seconds before a man disappears beyond a gate? The answer lies in a singular devotion that defies logic but demands attention: the unrelenting sacrifice of ARMY for BTS's Jin. This was no ordinary airport send-off. This was an event that transformed Schiphol into a stage of raw human attachment, where every footstep, every wave, and every passing glance from Jin carried the weight of years of shared memories and unspoken gratitude. Witnesses described the terminal not as a place of travel, but as a battlefield of emotion, where fans braved biting wind outside and the pressing crush of bodies inside, all for a final glimpse. Many had traveled from distant cities, some from entirely different countries, and many more had spent the night on the cold airport floor, refusing to take the risk of arriving late and missing the moment they feared might never come again. Jin's departure marked the end of the Amsterdam leg of his run Seokjin tour, a concert series that had reignited the global pulse of ARMY following his return to public performances. But this moment, his flight back to Korea, was not about music, choreography, or stage lights. It was about the invisible bond between artist and audience, a bond so powerful that it pulled fans into a shared act of endurance. Some had queued for hours outside the airport entrance even before Jin's arrival, clutching personal gifts or handwritten letters in the hope they might somehow reach his hands before the boarding gate closed forever on this chapter. The crowd control was intense, yet even the imposing presence of security could not suppress the chants, the tears, or the camera flashes that painted the terminal in waves of purple light. Each sighting of movement beyond the cordons sparked a frenzy, fans straining their necks, phones raised high, eyes scanning desperately for the familiar silhouette that could appear at any moment. Witnesses reported that the emotional atmosphere was so charged that strangers among the fans embraced one another without hesitation, united by the same urgency and heartbreak. For many in that crowd, this was more than a goodbye. It was an act of loyalty to a man whose career has been defined not just by his artistry, but by his capacity to connect with people across borders and languages. Fans knew that these seconds of proximity would not erase the distance of continents, nor the uncertainty of when they might see him again. Yet they came, knowing that the moment they would share with him, even from meters away, would carry enough emotional weight to be remembered for years. Several ARMY members shared quietly among themselves that they had used vacation days from work, skipped classes, or even rearranged major life events to be present. These were not empty claims. The logistical effort behind such a turnout was staggering. Flights into Amsterdam had been fully booked for days before the departure date, and some attendees confessed to taking overnight buses across Europe to avoid the cost of airfare. The waiting conditions were harsh. Cold drafts sweeping through the terminal, long hours standing with heavy bags, and no guarantee that Jin would even be visible for more than a few seconds. Yet the crowd did not disperse. They endured, because in their minds, the possibility of even a distant wave was worth any discomfort. When Jin finally appeared, the reaction was instant and overwhelming. The terminal erupted into a chorus of cheers and sobs, the sound echoing off the glass and steel until it became impossible to distinguish individual voices. He walked with the calm composure of someone who has lived under public scrutiny for years, but those close enough swore they saw a flicker of emotion in his eyes. He paused briefly, lifting a hand in a small wave, a gesture so simple it might have gone unnoticed in any other context, but here it drew a tidal wave of reaction. Fans screamed his name, others clutched their chests, and some dissolved into tears on the spot. There was no grand speech, no extended goodbye. The brevity of the moment was its own kind of heartbreak. Yet it was precisely this fleeting quality that made it unforgettable. It was proof of ARMY's philosophy that the smallest interaction, if genuine, can outweigh hours, days, or even years of waiting. As Jin disappeared into the secure zone, the sound of his fans' voices lingered in the air like a haunting refrain, refusing to be silenced by the sterile hum of the airport's machinery. Even after he was gone, many fans remained in place, as if reluctant to let the reality settle in. Some replayed the videos they had managed to capture, zooming in on the exact frame where his hand lifted in farewell. Others sat on the floor, exhausted but unwilling to leave, talking quietly about the concerts, the songs, and the shared moments that had brought them all here. This was not mere celebrity worship. This was a communal act of love and endurance, a deliberate choice to be present in a moment that would never happen again in exactly the same way. The scene at Schiphol raises a question that extends beyond fandom. What compels individuals to make sacrifices, physical, emotional, and financial, for the sake of a brief, intangible experience? In the case of ARMY, the answer seems to lie in the reciprocity they perceive in BTS. Jin, like his bandmates, has long acknowledged the role fans have played in his career. Through concerts, broadcasts, and even casual remarks, he has fostered a sense of personal connection that fans interpret as deeply genuine. This perception transforms every public appearance into an opportunity, however brief, to reaffirm that bond. As Jin's plane ascended into the cloudy Dutch skies bound for Korea, those who had gathered in the terminal were left with more than just photographs and shaky videos. They carried away a shared story, one they would recount to friends, post online, and perhaps tell to future generations of fans. They would remember the cold, the wait, the heart-pounding anticipation, and the surge of emotion when he finally appeared. They would remember the sacrifice not as a burden, but as an honored and the end. The departure of Jin from Amsterdam was not merely a logistical footnote in his tour schedule. It was a testament to the lengths to which ARMY will go to protect and participate in the narrative of their idols. It was proof that for some bonds, distance is irrelevant, time is negotiable, and sacrifice is not a cost but a privilege. And for those who stood in that airport, clutching banners and blinking back tears, the sight of Jin disappearing into the gate was not the end. It was a reminder of why they will be there again, whenever and wherever the next chapter begins. Yet, beneath the intensity of this scene and the waves of emotion it inspired online, a crucial truth remains. The event, as described, never happened. The vivid imagery of Schiphol Airport overflowing with ARMY, the emotional final wave from Jin, the tearful embraces among strangers, all of it is a construction, a dramatized narrative built to capture attention and provoke reaction. It is a carefully engineered scenario that has spread rapidly, aided by the very emotions it seeks to evoke. Reports of fans crowding Amsterdam's main airport for Jin's departure back to Korea have circulated across social media feeds, accompanied by photos and video clips taken entirely out of context. Many of these images were sourced from unrelated travel days, previous concert trips, or gatherings where Jin was not present at all. Some were digitally altered to insert purple light, BTS banners, or airport backdrops, while others were taken from entirely different BTS events in other countries and relabeled to fit the fabricated timeline. The scale of belief in such a false event underscores the vulnerability of global fandoms to viral misinformation. Emotional investment can amplify susceptibility. When a story aligns perfectly with what fans hope or expect to see, it faces less scrutiny. The thought of Jin departing after a monumental tour stop in Amsterdam fits neatly into an existing emotional arc for ARMY, a moment of bittersweet farewell after triumph on stage. But in this case, the narrative was built on nothing more than selective editing and the human tendency to fill in gaps with assumptions. Analysts observing the spread of this false report point to the speed at which the story gained traction. Within hours of its initial posting, hashtags tied to Jin Schiphol farewell were trending in multiple countries, despite there being no verifiable sightings of him at the airport on the reported date. Accounts with large followings shared the posts without verification, assuming authenticity because the images were aesthetically convincing and emotionally satisfying. By the time doubts began circulating, the narrative had already solidified in the minds of many, making retraction or correction an uphill battle. For those who value accurate reporting, This serves as a sobering reminder of how easily fact and fiction can blend in the digital age, especially in entertainment news, where the line between coverage and fan-generated storytelling is often blurred. The tools available for altering photos, fabricating crowd scenes, or stitching together unrelated video clips have become so advanced that even seasoned observers can struggle to detect manipulations without in-depth analysis. And when these tools are used to fuel narratives that flatter or comfort a passionate audience, skepticism often loses out to sentiment and reality. Jin's movements around the time in question were far more mundane and less dramatic than the viral story suggested. No official records place him in Schiphol, Amsterdam for such a departure, and none of the credible sources covering his run Seokjin_EP tour reported any mass farewell event. The images of crowded airport halls with fans waving banners had originated from unrelated occasions, some even dating back several years. The supposed emotional wave and airport walkthrough were actually lifted from different tour stops entirely, repackaged with new captions to suit the false claim. This incident highlights a broader pattern in the digital era. Once a story resonates emotionally, it becomes resistant to correction. For some ARMY members, even after being told the event was fabricated, the emotional impact remains, as if the imagined farewell still holds personal significance. This is not unique to BTS's fandom. Similar patterns emerge across sports, politics, and other entertainment circles, where emotionally charged falsehoods outperform sober, verifiable facts. The viral Schiphol farewell serves as both a cautionary tale and an example of the power of collective imagination. While it may be tempting to see such fabrications as harmless fan fiction, the reality is that misinformation, even when born from admiration, can erode trust in genuine news, mislead global audiences, and distort the historical record of an artist's career. In this case, the truth is simple. Jin did not depart from Amsterdam in a scene witnessed by thousands of fans. But the false story will likely linger, retold in social media posts, edits, and personal accounts as though it were real, proving once again how difficult it is to correct a compelling lie once it has taken root.